Trying to solve an equation where you see the same variable more than once. Today we will learn how to combine like terms to be able to solve equations. Like terms have the same variables to the same power. Like terms can be combined. Take a look at the examples below. In the first row, we have 2x and negative 5x. Those are like terms because both of them have a variable of x, and they are both just x to the first power. These two terms can be combined together. The same is for a and 1/2 of a. Even though there is not a coefficient in front of a, that is equivalent to having 1a. And lastly, negative 2xy to the second power and 8xy to the second power are like terms. In the other column are unlike terms because they do not have the same variable raised to the same power. So we cannot combine 6x and 5y. We are not able to combine y and y squared. And we are not able to combine x and 7. Let's take a look at a few examples. The first example, we are going to be solving for the variable x. And our equation is negative 6x plus 3x is equal to negative 21. So right here, I see two terms that are like terms, because they have the same variable of x to the same power. So in step 1, we must combine like terms. Well, since we have x terms, we can combine negative 6x's plus positive 3x's. When we add the coefficients of negative 6 plus 3, we have a result of 3x. This means that the left-hand side of this equation can be combined to become 3x. So far we have taken our original equation and rewritten it as 3x equals negative 21. And we have done so by combining like terms. Now we are ready to solve for the variable or solve for x. As a reminder, 3 and x are connected by multiplication. To isolate or solve for x, we must undo the operation of multiplication. The inverse of multiplication is division. This means we must divide the left-hand side by 3, and whatever we do to one side of the equation, we must do to the other. To simplify the right-hand side of the equation, we must divide negative 21 by 3. Negative 21 divided by 3 has a value of negative 7, which means x has a solution of negative 7, and we have solved this equation by combining like terms. Let's take a look at example number 2. We're going to combine like terms to solve for the variable z in the equation 3.5z minus 2 7/10 z is equal to negative 6. Once again, our first step is the same. We must combine like terms. I see that there are like terms on the left-hand side of this equation. Both 3.5z and taking away 2.5z have the same variable raised to the same power. This means that they can be combined together since they're on the same side of the equation. So for our z terms on the left-hand side, we are going to add the two terms together. When we add 3.5 plus negative 2 7/10 together, they have a sum of 8/10 of z, which means we can take our original equation and by combining like terms, simplify it to 8/10 of z equals -6. Now we are ready to solve for z. And in order to solve for z in step number 2, we must isolate or get the variable all by itself. As a reminder, 8/10 and z are connected by multiplication. And we undo the operation of multiplication by performing division. This means we must divide both sides of our equation by 8/10. 8/10 divided by itself will cancel each other out. Whatever you do to one side, you must perform onto the other. This means we must divide -6 by 8/10 to simplify this right-hand side of the equation. -6 divided by 8/10 has a quotient of -7.5. Therefore, we have solved for z by combining like terms, and z has a solution of -7.5. We took a look at an example with integers. We took a look at an example with decimals. Now let's finish with an example with fractional coefficients. The procedure will not be any different. And let's take a look at solving for the variable y. 5.5y plus 2.5y equals 37. I see on the left-hand side of my equation 2 terms with the same variable of y raised to the same power, and therefore I know I have like terms that can be combined together. These 2 terms both have a variable of y raised to the first power. So let's begin to solve this equation by combining our like terms where we are adding our coefficients. 5.5 plus 2/3 has a value of 6, and you see 1, 6 repeating if you used your Desmos online scientific calculator. Now, I can't put this as the value in front of y because it is not the exact value, and it's actually on the calculator, it began to round it. So just a reminder that if you do use your Desmos calculator, this function right here will convert your decimal to a fraction. And once you convert that decimal into a fraction, you will have that the sum of those 2 like terms is 37/6 y. So in step number 1, even though we are working with fractions, we were able to combine like terms and now have an equation of 37/6 y equals to 37. We are now ready to solve this equation by combining like terms. We've combined like terms, so now we need to begin to solve for our y or our variable. And as a reminder, 37/6 and y are connected by multiplication. To undo multiplication, we must perform division, not only to one side, but to both sides of our equation. That is to keep it balanced. So 37/6 divided by itself have a value of 1. Therefore, we will have y all by itself. And whatever we do to one side of the equation, we must perform onto the other. We must type in 37 divided by 37/6. And when you type that into your calculator, you will see that you have a value of 6 as your quotient. And the reason why I'm saying the word quotient is the solution when you perform division. I also just wanted to show you that this is how it would look in your Desmos online scientific calculator if you type in this division correctly. So once again, after the division is performed on the right-hand side, y has a value of 6. So we were able to solve equations today by combining like terms.